Thanks for staying with us. Now, Accra High Court has ruled that Special Prosecutor Martin Amidu can press charges against Boko Central MP Mahama Ayariga. The court, presided over by Justice Ifya Sari, today dismissed 2 applications filed by lawyers for the legislator. The lawyers had argued that Mr. Amidu, who is beyond the mandatory retirement age of 65, cannot hold office as Special Prosecutor and can therefore not file charges against the MP. They also maintained the crimes alleged to have been committed by the MP cannot be prosecuted by the Office of Special Prosecutor. Justice Boche in her ruling said Mr. Amidu has been duly appointed and sworn in as the Special Prosecutor despite a case challenging his eligibility pending at the Supreme Court. She stated that the court will resist any attempt to rule on a case the Supreme Court has to deal with. Joining us on the line now is our man in court, Joseph Akablay. Joseph, what more do we know about this ruling?
So, Daniel, first, the issue that the court dealt with related to whether the special prosecutor could go ahead and file charges against the MP, because the concern had been raised that there was a pending case at the Supreme Court challenging his hold of the office. But the court was of the opinion that it cannot perform the functions that were to be performed by the Supreme Court in terms of interpreting that aspect of the Constitution and whether Mr. Amidu can hold office. And the judge also noted that there has been no injunction against Mr. Amidu performing his functions, and as a result of that, he can proceed to file charges against the Boko Central MP. In terms of the other case relating to the evasion of taxes, some of the charges against the MP was struck out. That relating to fraudulent evasion of tax, evasion of customs duty, and dealing in foreign exchange without license. The charge relating to fraudulent evasion of customs duties that was also filed against the other businessman, Kendrick Mafu, was however struck out by the court, leaving him to be discharged because that was the only charge that was leveled against him. Mr. Ayariga proceeded to plead not guilty to all the charges leveled against him, and he was granted bail, self-recognizance bail, to the tune of 100,000 cedis.
So beyond the legal issues, tell us about the bail conditions set for the MP.
And so he's required to, in terms of self-recognizance bail, they didn't ask for any individual to show up for him, so he has been identified on his own, because the judge explains that he's a member of parliament, he's someone who is known and could easily be identified by anyone. And so there's no need for surety provided for him, and the amount of 100,000 cedis, which is not to be justified.
Now, Joseph, what does this mean for the initial case against Mr. Martin Amidu's eligibility to hold the office?
What it means now is that until the Supreme Court decides on that particular matter, that case remains pending, and Mr. Amidu can go ahead to initiate prosecutions and carry out other functions handed in by the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act, which empowers him to carry out various prosecution of various corruption and corruption-related offences. But that case remains pending at the Supreme Court. Daniel.
Thank you very much, Joseph Akablay, for joining us with that update. We move to other issues now, and pregnant women, the aged and disabled in Kwekrom, a community in the Gomwa East District of the Central Region, have to travel several kilometers to Winneba to access healthcare. This is because a CHIPS compound project has been abandoned for the past 4 years. The residents are unhappy with the situation and want it rectified. From Kwekrom, Henry Kwesubedu reports.
Dorothy Adu and Mary Otto both went into labor one midnight. A taxi in the nearby village was their savior, as there was no vehicle around to send them to hospital. They traveled on a terribly bumpy road over several kilometers to Winneba. The nearest health facility is about 2 hours' drive from Kwekrom.
It was a painful experience traveling on the terrible road to the hospital.
My water broke around 1 a.m. My family had to call a taxi driver from the next town to transport us to Winneba. The cost of transportation was about 50 Ghana cedis.
They speak for several other women in this community where there is no health facility. Community health-based planning services, popularly known as CHIPS compounds, were introduced as interventions for areas like these. For Kwekrom, however, one of such facilities is only half-baked and rotting away. The abandoned structure has been roofed with doors fixed, but without windows. Dorothy and Mary say even though they have their children now, the pain and anxiety could have reduced had this CHIPS compound been completed when they went into labor.
The
CHIPS compound is just about 10 minutes away from my house. The pain I endured could have been less if the facility was operating. We need government's intervention.
They paid to be transported to Winneba, but for many other women in this community, affording transportation fares is a problem, so they deliver at home with all the risks associated. The problems are not limited to pregnant women. 46-year-old Kujata has a mobility disability.
The facility has been abandoned for the past 4 years. Persons with disability like me struggle to access clinics and hospitals across the country because most of these facilities are not disability friendly. Traveling to Unica to access healthcare is quite challenging for me.
Every election year, come to Kwekrum appealing for votes. This time, the community is leveraging its numbers to demand the completion of this CHIPS compound. They will not allow political campaigns here in 2020. Daniel Kofiajaman is Town Development Committee Secretary of Kwekrum.
If you don't see this project completed before 2020, they shouldn't even bother to step a foot here to come and campaign. We will change them with machetes and cutlasses. I'm speaking on behalf of my youth members. If you don't see the completion of this particular project here, no political party should even dare coming here to come and campaign. It won't happen. And I'm saying this on behalf of the chiefs and the youth, that we are not going to sit down for them to come and deceive us again.
Today, hundreds of them are receiving free health screening organized by the Physical and Mental Health Foundation in collaboration with the Rotary Club. They appealed to other philanthropic individuals and organizations to come to the aid of the community. A glance at the structures shows it should not take much for government to fix this CHIPS compound with the urgency it deserves. Henry Kwesi-Bedu's report for Joy News.
Away from that, the caterer who served some pupils with watery soup under the school feeding program has been sacked. National coordinator of the program, Mrs. Gertrude Kwashiga, said such situations could have been avoided, but for lack of funding to ensure monitoring of services rendered. She made the revelation to my colleague, Bernice Abubedu Lansa, on News Desk.
Monitoring team, we have the MLE, monitoring and evaluation in our department. So they oversee to some of the things. They have their tools for actually going onto the field. In other words, they have the checklist to make sure that all the things that are required under the program is observed. And so we are doing that effectively, but for some time now it's been a problem on us. Monitoring has never gone on for over a year, but we are working on it.
And why is that?
You know, well, funding and all kinds of things, but then we have gone to actually WFP to actually help us with the joint
That's monitoring. The World Food Program.
Yes, and then you can see of late, recently, the ministry carried on with some joint monitoring. The Social Protection Department was involved, you know, was tasked to actually do that monitoring. So it was a joint monitoring that they did together. But I think today, the reports will be coming, and then we'll take a clue from there.
So you're dismissing the claims that caterers are selected on political basis, or which party they belong to?
We don't do that. We have not done it. Otherwise, the clear motion was that they must buy the forms and apply, and that was done with due diligence. Yes, and that was done seriously.
Did you find that caterer who prepared that very watery soup?
Yeah, we have.
And is she still working?
No. We have actually taken her off the program.
All right. Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure.
It's a pleasure. Yes.
And that's Mrs. Kwashiga. Yes. She is the acting national coordinator of the school feeding program. And we've been talking about the quality of food service.
Meanwhile, Mrs. Kwashiga says a total of 5,711 caterers and head cooks in the northern and upper parts of the country are receiving training to improve on the quality of meals served to pupils.
We have also put our programs in place for the year. because we have our annual operating manual that actually talks about training for our women. So we are in the process of doing that before the news came. And so, as you know, programs for the year will have to commence, and that is what we are doing now. But then also, the bad cooking habits of our women also contributes to, the training as well. There's no cutting corners for cooking. You have to use the right ingredients for cooking. But then, as you know, that the women sometimes, because of lack of knowledge, they do things on their own and to create problems for themselves. But cooking is just a straightforward thing that has to be observed accordingly.
But that's why so there's a you are the coordinator.
Yes.
There's a program.
Yeah. So
you have people who must supervise them.
We have them. There's a whole chain of command. School feeding is a whole structure. We have them in the regions and the districts. But for now, what we're doing also to add on to the checks that I'm talking about is to actually go by the we call it the measuring, of quantities, to be used for the food. So we call it the, we actually ask for standardization.
Okay.
So that actually gives the standardized way.
Still live on Joy News today with me, Daniel Daze. Still up ahead, many children under age 5 are dying from the consumption of caustic soda. Also happening live at the University of Ghana Business School is the biggest quiz in Ghana. The National Science and Maths Quiz is back on TV, radio and online. Hashtag NSMQ on Joy. We take you live to the University of Ghana Business School where the action is taking place. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us here on Joy News today. Now, on June 16, 1979, former head of state Ignatius Kutu Champong and former border guards commander Major General Edward Kweku Utica were executed. Well, as we build up to the second in our series of crimes that shook the nation, titled Scars of the Revolution today, here's why they were killed and what the family of General Utica went through after the demise of their father.
On January 13, 1972, barely 2 weeks into the new year, soldiers led by then Colonel Ignatius Kutu Champong of the 1st Infantry Brigade overthrew the democratically elected government of Dr. Kofi Abrefa-Busia.
There has not been an election. There has only been an adventure by a small band of the military people stationed in Accra.
This was his justification.
I would like to emphasize immediately that this coup was not initiated by the armed forces merely to satisfy our selfish ends. The takeover was occasioned principally by the hypocrisy of the Busia regime, coupled with the inefficient management by that regime of our economy.
6 years later, on July 5, 1978, General Champong was deposed in the palace coup led by his second-in-command, General F.W.K. Akufu. At the time of the June 4th uprising, Champong was confined to his village of Trabom in the Ashanti region. He was apprehended, as were other high officials of the Supreme Military Council regime. In the early hours of 16 June 1979, Champong and commander of the Border Guards Unit, Major General E.K. Utica, were dragged from their places of confinement and shot and killed. Wife of General Utica, Justin Utica, tells us what happened to the husband.
On the 16th of June, early in the morning, the Presbyterian chaplain and Father Kumesi, all from Bema camp. Father Kumesi comes from my area. I saw him carrying my husband's bag. They were about to said the 6 o'clock news. So he asked my cousin Vic to switch off the radio. And they sat down and they said, let us pray. So I bowed down my head, we prayed. And Father Kumesi, who speaks my dialect, said, the day before, the previous day, they came to tell him that he should come to his chapel. They are going to pray for those who are going to be executed. So he saw my husband with General Champo handcuffed. They were brought there. So my husband handed over his bag to him to be brought to me.
According to the military government, they were convicted of squandering government funds by revolutionary courts. But a retired Air Force officer, Colonel Kofi Abaka Jackson, in 2003 gave evidence before the National Reconciliation Commission insisting General Utica was executed to satisfy the other ethnic groups whose members in the military were being executed. The eldest daughter of General Utica, Doris Utica Gaba, agrees.
It's not every military officer who was happy with what happened. They may keep quiet, but a lot of people talked. A lot of people told us things. Even when they were in prison in Isawam, it was not, most people were not happy to see them there. And those were the last hours they had with them. People talked. The soldiers who were guarding them talked. People were guarding them. And for whatever reason, they were going to execute him. People heard it. And they informed us. It will be interesting to know that, but I wish to God, I would like to meet those who buried them when they were executed. They were very, very kind to the family. They made sure we could identify everybody. To the extent that when the bodies were exhumed to 37, there was no need for DNA. So you could see that somebody had deliberately made sure that these bodies should be identified.
Her younger sister, Elizabeth Utica, believes that if their father had been given a fair trial by a court of competent jurisdiction, he would have survived.
I don't think that he and his colleagues were properly tried. I've always said that if my father had a fair trial where he was allowed to defend himself with a lawyer like Mr. Rollins had when he attempted the May 15th. He was being tried by the military tribunal. He had a lawyer to defend himself. So why didn't he give them that opportunity? For a long time, what one felt was some kind of a trauma. It was a very traumatic experience which took many, many years for me to get better.
May the souls of the departed rest in peace. But now we take our National Science and Maths Quiz NSMQ watch, and the Apam Senior High School took an early lead in their contest against Winneba Senior High School and Daboase Senior High School. They won with the highest points so far with 62 points after answering all the questions in round 5. This means that Apam has sealed its place in the 1/8 stage of the competition. Maxwell Agbagba is on standby. Maxwell, what's happening now?
Radio is calling. Yes.
And Maxwell, if you can hear me, we want to know what the latest is at the University of Ghana Business School. Maxwell, can you hear me? Right, it's unfortunate we are unable to reach Maxwell now. We'll speak to him before the bulletin is over. But many children are dying or suffering from complications, including respiratory and gastrointestinal burns due to caustic soda ingestion. Doctors at Konfanochi Teaching Hospital say the situation has reached epidemic levels with high incidence at least in 6 regions of the country. Ohiming Teria has more in the following report.
Ingestion of the corrosive chemical remains a common problem within the pediatric population in middle and northern belts of Ghana. A minimum of 4 new cases of children under 5 years swallowing caustic soda are reported every week at Komfanoche Hospital. Poor handling of the substance by parents and guardians who lack knowledge on safety handling is to blame for widespread occurrence. Continued storage of caustic soda in soft drink or water bottles exposes children to danger of drinking it.
Growing up as a young doctor, hardly will you encounter that. The commonest injections that we encountered were kerosene, and occasionally DDT and the rest. But nowadays, it all just shifted to caustic soda injections. We are seeing it so frequently, that a week hardly passes without us recording a case of caustic soda injection. And the consequences are very huge.
Affected children are unable to swallow food through the esophagus and have to be fed through gastrostomy tubes, and they suffer abnormal weight loss.
Because they come as a clear liquid like water, the person may not know, you mistake it for water, and as soon as you drink it, you suffer huge burns in your mouth. And you see, you put the thing into your mouth, probably swallow, before you get to know that this is burning. So commonly, the effect is not only in the mouth, it also goes into the throat. So we will see them acutely with a lot of mouth burns and esophageal burns. So they can't swallow, and then they are drooling a lot of saliva because they can't swallow, and then they come. So that is what we see them in the acute state. So when they come, we need to manage the pain and the infection associated with the burns.
In 2016 alone, the Komfanoche Teaching Hospital saw 28 cases in their acute stages and higher numbers subsequently in 2017 and 2018. Majority of children affected have parents aged between 25 and 35 and have no formal education but into traditional soap making business.
The situation is aggravated by what people call empowerment of women. NGOs are teaching women how to prepare soup for a living. But probably they don't add this other caution to it, that it is can cause a lot of damage to children. So that comes that we are picking a lot of cases nowadays just because of the empowerment of women to prepare soup and the rest, and the way they keep these causes.
High cost of treatment and management of caustic soda injection means most parents are unable to afford. Averagely, the cost of surgery, intensive care management, intravenous administration of nutrition is about 30,000 Ghana cedis.
It's a huge cost burden. If I'm telling you the various stages of management and investigation, we need to do a lot of huge burden. And you must know that the people who are affected, these are, for me to use, people from humble families people are trying to help to empower so they can meet ends meet. So usually it is just beyond their rate. But of course, if you go to a hospital, you need ICU care after the surgery and the rest. So the cost will definitely be running 20,000 plus.
Meet 8-year-old Jamilatu Alasan from Sehisui in the Western North region. She has been on admission for 3 months for swallowing caustic soda. Her ribs can easily be counted. Doctors put her current weight of 16 kilograms, comparable with a 4-year-old.
Esophageal structure that affects the ability to take any feed orally. So the child has been vomiting and vomiting and vomiting and vomiting, and you see the end results. So much wasted. 8-year-old who I said should be weighing probably 30 kilograms, is weighing 16 now.
Jamilatu mistook the caustic soda for herbal medicine she was on after her mom stored it in a similar bottle and kept it at the same place.
She had fever, so I bought her a herbal medicine. When she returned from school the next day, I asked her to take some. It turned out she drank caustic soda stored in a similar bottle and kept at the same place by her mother. I took her to a nearby clinic because she wasn't getting better. She had 2 shots of injection with assurance from the doctor she would be fine. Later, I got to know it was the caustic soda she took instead of the herbal preparation. We took her to St. John of God Hospital at Seshi Asafo, from where we were referred to Comfort Anochi Teaching Hospital. We have been on admission here for 3 months. Now there's no money left to take care of her surgery.
Now, some fishermen in the central region say it's too early for anyone to conclude that the closed season has had any impact. According to them, the fundamentals for the closed season were weak, and their complaints about the ministry allowing the individual trawlers to continue fishing whilst they were on break defeats the purpose for the closed season. They have been speaking with Richard Kojunyako, who has been assessing the situation at the beaches 2 days after the closed season ended.
So this is the beach of Cape Coast, Midday to be precise, and today marks the beginning of the opening of the season that was closed about a month ago. As you can see around me, there are scores of people that are buying and selling fish. The season has been open for them and they are excited because if for nothing, they will get the opportunity to go back to sea and to go back to their business. But they caution that it is early days yet for anybody to rejoice that there's been some impact as a result of the season that was closed to all fishers. I've been interacting with some of the fishermen who tell me, well, they are waiting because the real fishermen that will use the canoe to go for their fishing business are yet to go. The people you see here are the ones that use the nets offshore and then they pull the nets to the beach, and then this is the result that we got.
It's been good on the first day. We thank God the season has been open. At least today we've got some good catch. We pray it continues. Some of the fishermen that went to sea got some good catch. We are yet to see the kind of fish that we need to see that will prove to us that indeed we have had an impact. But the fisheries minister has come to warn us with some soldiers against the use of our nets, but has failed to provide us with the required nets. That's the sad aspect of it. We will continue to use our nets. Whatever will happen should happen. It is too early for anybody to rejoice that we've had an impact with the close season. Even when we don't go for fishing on Tuesdays, the following Wednesday, we get some good catch. It's early.
From the beaches of Cape Coast, my name is Richard Kojunyako for Joy News.
Still live on Joy News today with me, Daniel Daze. Coming up in business, South Africa committed to improving trade with Ghana as it ratifies the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. Daryl Kwao joins me with the latest after this.